Now let's get into UFC Vegas 32. And the question that we always have to ask before we get into the card, Blake, is did the bangers hit?
That's a rhetorical question, my guy. They always hit. Was there any injuries or any COVID,
Nope.
instances? Nothing,
You've been
right?
on a hot streak for at least the last month now. At least.
I'd say maybe closer to 2.
Closer to 2. I mean, when's the last time that 2 of the 3 got canceled for COVID or injuries? That was probably the last bummer of a Blake Spanger. But besides that, you've been pretty solid.
I mean, just to recap our picks from last week, it was Brandon Allen versus Punalele Soriano. I butchered that again. I'm so sorry.
The fight of the night up until that point.
Right. And then I believe I had Adrian Yanez versus Randy Costa.
Of course.
And Costa, however you say that. Darren Elkins and Derrick Miller.
Mm-hmm. And
so, I mean...
all fantastic fights.
All those fights were crazy. All of those fights were amazing. And there were actually a couple other ones that were insane on this card as well. But those 3, I think, honestly, besides the main event, probably were the 3 most action-packed.
Mm-hmm. And 2 of those names are ones that we're going to talk about now, because let's take a look at some of the biggest winners coming from this card. The first name I want to give to you is for the prelims. Let's talk about Mickey Gall, because of course a number of years ago, after he had that weird fight against CM Punk, he kind of alienated a lot of fans, is what it seems like. A lot of people kind of just didn't like him, but he's really made a career, I guess, re-emergence, because he's been looking fantastic, and he really does look like a complete fighter, especially after Saturday night when he just kind of throttled Jordan Williams in this one, a wrestler that had good praise from Anthony Smith, Lionheart Smith. He had praise from him. They've had good rounds in sparring, but Mickey Gall he takes him down, and he locks in yet another rear naked choke, and Mickey Gall now has he's tied for the second most submissions in welterweight history. He has 5. The leaders have 6. So what do you think about him? And has he kind of turned a page and maybe put that CM Punk fight maybe in the rearview mirror at this point?
He looked good this weekend, but he was fighting against a guy that I think still hasn't had a ton of experience within the UFC. I mean, think the performance before this, he was fighting Mickey Gall, I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. He was fighting Mike Perry, and he looked awful. I mean, he didn't look awful. I should take that back. He didn't look great. Mm-hmm. And Mike Perry, we've seen what his recent performances have looked like. And if that's the guy that kind of dominates you, because I think he lost a unanimous decision to Mike. Yeah. I think he's still got a lot to work on. Is this a step in the right direction? Yes, he beat a guy that he was supposed to beat, a guy that was that the UFC brass and everyone else probably thinks of on somewhat of a similar level. Now he's going to have to go and get a step up, I think. He's going to have to go and prove, like, hey, I'm for real. I'm not going to lose to a guy like Diego Sanchez. I'm not going to lose to a guy like Mike Perry. Like, how did Diego Sanchez TKO you? Like, that's crazy to me. So, I mean, hopefully he's still working on.
Is the best school in all of MMA, Blake. So
don't get me started with that. Don't get me started.
Let's not go back to that, right? Oh, that was a couple months ago. I think those jokes might have died.
Had some technical difficulties there. I apologize.
Blake, maybe you don't need that paycheck.
Headphone jack was sat on, and I busted it out.
He really sat on the headphone jack. Was this amateur hour? Okay.
There's 1 hour of every day that I reserve for amateurs, and this was the hour I chose today.
That joke was probably a lot better in your head, wasn't it?
It's better than the Broncos' record's going to be this year.
Okay, let's move on. I swear, you always bring up that. Unbelievable. But next guy I want to throw out there is the man that proved the superior snack is Dr. Pepper, I guess. I mean, technically, it's not a snack. The superior junk food. Yeah, superior junk food is Dr. Pepper. Adrian Yanez, he really turned this fight around in the second round. I mean, it's first and second look like completely different fights. He's able to weather the storm against Randy Costin, put up some excellent body shots, really worth the gut well against the cage, and then lands this really devastating uppercut that ends up dropping Costa. And this was just a really solid fight, and former Dana White Contender Series guy, and he's just one of these prospects that keeps on climbing, and he might be a factor in the upper echelon of the division coming soon.
Don't know about that. Don't know about that. We'll need to see a couple more, I think fights from him against probably better prospects. Costa just blew his load, man. Like, how many freaking strikes did he piece Giannis up in the first round with? I think he had like 51 significant strikes or something crazy in the first round. Yeah, it's crazy he wasn't able to get Giannis out of there. I mean, you see the damage on Giannis's face after the match, and he's the one that won. Like, Costa looked relatively unscathed, even after taking that huge uppercut. Like, I thought that might have broke his nose or something, but dude was on a jog today. Like, he's looking like he's fine. He just blew his freaking load and had no energy, it looked like, in that second round.
Do races just have restorative properties?
I don't know.
Is that something we need to look into?
I don't know, man.
What's better? What's more performance enhancing, Reese's or EPO? Okay.
I'm going to say EPO. I'm just going to go out on a limb.
EPO's tough. So, of course, we're going to get to that fight a little later. Then also my biggest winner from the card is going to be the damage Darren Elkins, because he now has the second most wins in the featherweight division. He has 15. The leader, Max Holloway, has 17. But this was another fight where he really turned things around from the first round to the second. And he just had another one of those performances where he broke his opponent. We saw in like the last seconds of that fight, Derrick Miller, he almost didn't want to be there. It is kind of what it seemed like. Then he just kind of balled up and was trying to avoid as much damage as possible. But we all saw when it was over. And after a number of losses, after a string of losses, it looked like it might have been over for Darren, but now he gets a couple wins in a row. He looks great, and I'm super excited to see his next fight. This man just will never go away, is what it seems like.
Yeah, he's a grinder, man.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ultimate grinders, and also another Darren Elkins fight. What would it be without him bleeding from the face, of course, right?
Would it take like 10 seconds?
Yeah. Who's the quickest bleeder? I know they're not nearly the same weight class, Blake, but imagine how much blood would be on the canvas if we saw Darren Elkins versus Nate Diaz.
It would be a flood.
You know how we got that for UFC 200, we got that gold canvas? We're going to have to get like a crimson. It's going to look like that, but crimson. If these guys ever fought, that would. Hey, you really have to take all the blood donors. I mean, you probably have to get what, like a pint from each fan, right, for this fight to be able to support them afterward.
Maybe just to kind of get ahead of it.